Hello there. I'm Reverend Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram. If you've been seeking a compassion-based, contemplative approach to Enneagram inner work, you are most certainly in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. So we are in week 41 of a 52-week Sunday Talk series based on this book by Oren Sofer, Your Heart Was Made for This. And last week we started on the theme of generosity. We talked about generosity of spirit around the circle of the Enneagram. And I have to say that hearing the shares in our CPE groups was really quite touching for me. And I appreciated it in particular when folks shared about almost like this new or renewed generosity of spirit toward themselves and toward others. I mean, understanding our different stances can indeed be so vital in having more empathy or compassion, again, not just for ourselves, but for others who just don't operate like we do, don't get triggered by the same things. And so I want to deepen into this conversation around generosity by sharing something that came to mind a lot as folks were sharing in the CPE groups last week. It was the obstacles to generosity that are presumably not just based on your Enneagram type, but based on your dominant instinct on the Enneagram. So I am going to later this week offer some teachings on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media things to kind of support you because I know some of you know this stuff really, really well, and others are just barely getting to understand what the instincts are. So I'm going to offer today a look at the three instinctual domains of life as taught from the Enneagram perspective, if you will, and explore how this might be impacting your expression of generosity. So let's begin. I want to begin with a quote from the American Buddhist teacher, Sharon Salzberg, who writes, "The cultivation of generosity is the beginning of spiritual awakening. Generosity has tremendous force because it arises from an inner quality of letting go, being able to let go, to give up, to renounce, and to give generously, all spring from the same source. And when we practice generosity, we open up these qualities within ourselves. Letting go gives us profound freedom and many loving ways to express that freedom." So indeed, generosity, it's important to say, is not about this practice where I'm saying, hey, you should be a good person and you should give more. Or, the scriptures or religious leaders say that you should be generous. Like, we're not coming at all from the standpoint that you should be generous. The idea, rather, is that what if when you are in touch with your true spiritual identity, generosity is a natural outflow of that because you are tapped into the infinite wellspring that is the very ground and source of your life. But when we're operating from personality, we think, oh, shoot, I have to hustle for this or that. I have to hold on to what little love. I have to compete and fight for what little finances or security or power I think I have in the world. But what if, through this practice of letting go, and notably, if you're in our contemplative practices and the Enneagram groups, you know that our core practice, centering prayer, is a practice of letting go over and over again to build this muscle. and it's there for a reason. The idea is that spiritual awakening isn't something that we're striving for, not something we're growing toward, but rather it's a stripping away of the things that we are not, the things we don't really need, but we think we need. And so we wonder why we don't have that illumined awakening, that peace when we're saying instead, okay, okay, I want to do my spiritual practice, but can I hold on to this relationship? Can I hold on to this money? Can I hold on to these things? Can I hold on to this power? Can I hold on to this success? And over again, our practice invites us to let it go. Generosity is just another way we can practice being willing to open, to let go, and to trust that something bigger than us sustains us. And so, where we feel the most scarce, the most lack consciousness, is often in the area of our dominant instinctual domain. So, there are three. One of those. And remember, all of these are related to our preservation, our self-preservation or survival in the world as animals, as human beings. And so we cling to these as a way of surviving when clinging is actually a way that we neglect to thrive. Let's take a look at the self-preservation instinct. The self-preservation instinct is very much, when this is dominant, you have major concerns about your well-being. It's very much, it's about me and mine. And so just being aware of that, again, this is not to judge, oh wow, God, the self-preservation are more selfish than the others because it's all about me and mine. All of them, all the instinctual biases are just that. They're biases in one way or another, not encapsulating the whole because me and mine is important to the whole. But your belief that you have to hustle just to keep and preserve for yourself, for your family, those closest to you, these resources can actually be impeding your ability to open to a deeper spiritual knowing. So the three zones that Russ Hudson teaches that relate to the self-preservation instinct are self-care. That's literally related to matters of your health and being concerned, will I have enough to take care of my health? Am I comfortable? All the things related to your body. This doesn't mean that because you're self-preservation dominant that you're good at it. It just means that it's the focus, the primary focus of your attention, right? Practicality and resources. That's the second zone, another area of focus for the self-preservation dominant people across all numbers on the Enneagram. And so just notice how when you're invited to generosity, but it threatens one of these areas, that you're less likely to be generous. And so the cure isn't to force yourself to be more generous. The antidote is the faith that something bigger than you is taking care of your life. And there's often a leap of faith to fall into that knowing. So the third zone within self-preservation is the zone of home life. Chores around the house, maintenance, all those things, those can be related to self-preservation. And so again, when that's solid and stable, then a lot of folks who are self-preservation dominant are more likely to look at their next instinct and go, oh, okay, if I have strong social next, maybe I'll donate some money for some social good, but what's hard is to do that when your dominant instinct is threatened, right? So self-preservation, considering that, and maybe, just maybe this week you could take a tiny step of offering some generosity that stretches you a little bit in the tightness you feel around this area for yourself. The sexual instinct, this is what I'm dominant in. And the three zones are the zone of attraction. So this idea of investing time and resources and focus on being attractive, but also on seeing what I'm attracted to, that can take a lot of my resources, my energy. Uh, Exploration is the next category. And so again, across all the Enneagram numbers, if you're dominant and sexual, you could be high in this exploration area of like, what's the next and the new and the edge. And there's definitely, this is very different from the maintenance energy of the self-preservation. It's the breaking into new territory, unknown territory, that can be important. And then the third zone is merging, and that can literally be sex. It could literally be merging with a partner or just merging with your art project where you get lost in it, you know. So these are the three areas that tend to be of the highest priority. Again, I'm speaking in very broad strokes here, just something to consider. Even if you don't know what your dominant instinct is, you might be like, oh, you might have some realization on like, what is my relationship to this domain of life, right? So merging, and whereas the self-preservation focus instinct focuses on well-being, the sexual instinct focuses on desirability, right? Like sexual competitiveness or desirability. And that's again across all numbers. It's like even a 5 might be like, oh, they want that special relationship with one person to be intense in this certain way where they can finally share all the things that have been private, right? Finally share that with someone. And so resources generally go to this. And when any of this is threatened by the prospect of generosity, like the thing is, I don't have time for this other thing. I don't have the finances for this other thing. That can happen more likely. Like to use myself as an example, um, again, it is a little embarrassing because our society can be so judgmental now of like, oh, people who care about how they look, right? But I have seen that I have to make an intentional choice to spend money on maintaining my health, my actual physical well-being. But if it's something that I think will improve my looks, like I think about how I hate paying just to get my teeth cleaned at the dentist. And it's like, oh, this costs so much. And why is it so expensive? But then a few years ago, so my teeth were crooked, and someone proposed that I get Invisalign to straighten my teeth. And that was like a few $1,000s more than cleaning my teeth, right? But the excitement level, because this is new, this is not just maintaining, this is related, this is going to help me in life. Literally, remember though, just like have compassion for the sexual dominance, just like with the self-preservation, there's an unconscious, sometimes conscious belief that if this area is threatened, like you will die, you will not survive this. Like it's not going to be okay in life. And so we can understand how different people feel threatened by the different things. And I even have compassion when I see movie stars who like do these things to destroy their looks, but they've spent all this money on this weird plastic surgery. And I just wonder sometimes, it's like, is that the sexual instinct just like run riot? You know? And instead of judging it, it's like having some compassion for what you think you need, because that's no different from the self-preservation instinct people who end up living in mansions, owning much more than they could possibly use in a lifetime. The greed of that hoarding when people are starving, to me, there's an analogous like balance there. So just kind of looking at the ways where scarcity mindset and the feeling of lack and deprivation can lead to pretty wild behavior in the world, right? Finally, the social instinct. There are three zones. First is the zone of interpreting. So the social instinct, people have a lot of awareness around interpreting relational behavior in a room. They're very attuned to it. Um, and again, this is all relative, right? Because, if you're type 2 and you're relational, you might be like, oh, I must be social instinct. That's not always the case. Just because you're a relationship type, threes are good at reading a room. That doesn't mean, that we are social. It's all relative, but there's something about like attunement to the energy of the room, the hierarchy, who has the power, who has the prestige, and just being aware of that. So zone two is connecting. A lot of social instinct, it doesn't necessarily need like a deep connection, but those who are dominant in the social will have, it's like the networking popping from person to person, and uh, and recognizing that someone else might think that that's superficial, that they're just popping from person to person, they're not having deep conversations. But remember that for the social instinct, it's almost like, how are you going to get around the whole room and figure out what the whole scene is unless you just pop, 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 right? And so there's an awareness of that. And I want to say that for the social instinct, just like with the self-preservation, just like with the sexual, it doesn't mean you're good at it. It just means that you're hyper aware of it. Like maybe you're a type 4 and you never feel like you connect or you belong, but you're always obsessed with whether you belong. Um, and what, whether you fit into a group or not, whether you've been exiled from the group. And so when you're dominant in this, you're especially sensitive to it. You're sensitive to the places where you might not, feel that connection, if you will. So I think it's like you're sensitive to being ostracized, to being excluded, to being left out. That will generally hurt you more, and you will make more efforts, expend more of your life resources, your time, your energy toward ensuring that that doesn't happen and that that's not threatened. And so I think about that when I think of generosity, of like, what if somebody is a social instinct type, their personal values are like they want to help this person, but that person is in a different group, in maybe a nation where their friends don't really approve of it. Could generosity be limited for you if you're social, just dominant, right? Just looking at this integrity piece around how this fear of not belonging can actually limit your generosity when belonging feels threatened in some way. So I think that's it. Again, we'll continue to go deeper and explore. You don't have to know your dominant instinct yet. Hopefully, this will make you more curious. There's no way in a short, online talk can we really kind of get down to the bones of like what your dominant instinct is. But maybe if this talk does anything, it helps you to have perspective on how things might be harder for someone else to let go of than you. For instance, with me, when I left my law career, and left making big bucks as a lawyer in San Francisco behind, so many people said that was courageous. And maybe it was, but I never thought of it that way. For me, sexual dominant, living my passion will always take priority over even having money. And I've had to learn over time to care about having stability, financial stability and resources, and so there's something about really recognizing how what is amazing to one person is easy to another. And what's hard for one person might not be hard for you, but maybe you can understand that other things are hard for you. And so we don't need to judge each other in terms of generosity. At the same time, if you want to deepen your relationship with this spirit as the ground of being, and are willing to take a leap of faith to make a choice that feels true for you and important for you, but that jeopardizes your dominant instinct, then that's my invitation to you this week. Because I found that it's not in, yeah, it's great if, as a sexual dominant, yeah, it's a great day if I feel like on top of my game, you know, but it's the times when I feel ugly and the times when I feel not shiny or successful or capable that I have been forced in a way to lean, to rest on something other than that inside of my being. And so for you, I really want you to consider what that would be like to rest on something other than what your type thinks is essential for your life. And then see if that doesn't open another layer of connection to your holy, authentic being in God by whatever name you call God. Generosity of spirit toward each other, generosity of spirit toward yourself, generosity as a letting go of what your personality or ego says you must have. And then seeing in the act of that letting go what emerges from within yourself, from within the ground of your life. Namaste.